Hey, what's up, everybody? Back with another NBA breakdown today. It is a very short slate after a massive slate yesterday. We just get 3 games today. And honestly, if I was running better, betting wise, this would actually be a great slate today. I like some stuff in all 3 of these games. However, if you've been following me, you know that I have not been running well betting wise. It does feel like things are starting to turn a little bit. Would have had a positive day yesterday if Memphis had been able to keep it close down the stretch. They got it all the way back to 3 points and then just got blown out over the last couple minutes. But these are the things that happen in betting. Not saying it's a bad beat, just saying most of the picks were close or winners yesterday. So hopefully we're moving back in a positive direction. Never promises, but what I can promise you is that I'm putting the work in to at least give you good information on these games so that you can make your own decisions, whether you're tailing me or fading me, whatever you want to do on the betting side. So I think there is some good stuff in these 3 games today. Excited to walk through it with you. As always, if you're listening to the podcast and you could give me a 5-star review, rate the podcast, I'd really appreciate that. Give it a like on the YouTube channel, on Twitter. Just thankful for that. It's a lot of work, and I enjoy doing it, but appreciate the encouragement or feedback too. If you have feedback on how this could be more helpful to you, I'd be happy to hear it because I want to do it to make us all better. So, all right, enough rambling from me on this Thursday. Let's get into the games. First one up, we have the Suns at the Mavericks. Phoenix is now -2.5. They started out at -1.5, and the total is 216.5. Dallas is on a back-to-back here, and Dallas is 4-3 on back-to-back, so that's not really a detriment to them. However, this is their 5th game in 7 days, and if you remember that stretch recently where Memphis was playing really phenomenal, and they had even more than 5 and 7 days. I think they had something like seven games in 10 days or something crazy like that. But when they played Dallas in the last game of that stretch, they just totally ran out of gas in the second half and got pretty much destroyed. I think it's possible that something similar to that happens to Dallas here. I actually would cap this game a little bit differently than if both teams were rested, because Dallas is on their 5th game in 7 days. And they've had some tough games in that stretch. So I think the first half could be closer here, and the second half, maybe Phoenix pulls away a little bit. Phoenix is 9-7 against the spread with a rest advantage, which obviously they have here. So that's a good trend in their direction. These 2 teams have played twice already this year. November 17th, Phoenix won 105-98, so won by 7 points. And then November 19th, 112-104. So an 8-point differential there. I'm not sure if Doncic was in for both of those games. That was in a span where he was out some. And so I'm not 100% sure. But the reality is I went back and looked at the numbers for the Mavs with and without Doncic again today. And still, the Mavericks have a better offensive rating with Doncic off the floor by about 2 points. Their defensive rating is 1 better with him on. So it's not a huge swing either way. But I'm just saying, I think it's easy to assume that when Doncic is playing, Dallas is much better offensively. And in reality, that hasn't been the case. They are slightly better defensively, but even there, it's not making a massive difference. Now, Dallas, we know, has been playing really phenomenal at home, not giving up many points at all. If I pull up their game log here, so giving up at home 98, 102, 92, 99, 82, 89. So it's been a long stretch here where they're basically not giving up 100 points most of the time. However, I do think in this game, again, because of that factor of them maybe dying off a little bit near the end, and because Phoenix has been running well on offense, that it could get at least over that 100 to 102 mark and get up a little bit higher for Phoenix. On the other side, I actually am interested in Dallas's team total under here. I think when I went and looked at it, it was like 107.5, which seems really high to me because while they've been holding teams down, they haven't been scoring a lot at home either. 102, 104, 108. They did have 113 against Chicago, so that was their best, but then 99, 103. So they've been only been over 107.5 twice in their last 6 or 7 games at home. And again, this being a spot where I could see them kind of fading in the second half, I think 107.5 is actually a really high total for them. Phoenix is a good defensive team. I mean, they haven't been as dominant as they were earlier in the season, but they're certainly not bad on defense. And so I think this is a spot where I wouldn't expect Dallas to score tons of points. Maybe they get close to that total, but I wouldn't expect them to obliterate it. In terms of trends on this game, good against the spread trends season long for both teams. A little bit of an under trend for both teams. And then in the matchup specifically, which again pushes me toward Phoenix. Phoenix is 8-1 in their last 9 games at Dallas against the spread, and the under is 5-2 in the last 7 between these two teams. So I do like Phoenix here quite a bit. I actually took them at -1.5, but then I added more at -2.5 after I had gone through this whole breakdown. And then I do like the under if I had to take a side. But again, I think I prefer Dallas's team total under to the total for the game on this one. All right, next game up, number 2 out of 3 is the Pelicans at the Knicks. This is a battle of two teams that play incredibly slow. We've seen a number of these recently. The Knicks are last in pace in the league at 95.12. At home, they're playing at 94.76. So they break their own record for slowest pace when they're playing at home. The Pelicans only play at a 97.12 pace, which is still like bottom third of the league, 96.52 away. So there again, they drop down over half a point in pace when they play away from home. So I expect this to be a slow game where both teams kind of grimy it up. It doesn't look pretty, and it's probably a pretty strong defensive game. The Knicks, as we've been talking about, have been playing phenomenally, especially on the defensive end at home. They've been better at home. They allowed 112 to Minnesota the other day, but Minnesota's a high-powered offense that has been scoring the ball really well. So 112 is not a high total for Minnesota. And other than that, they've held teams under 100 in 9 out of their last 10 at home. That's just a phenomenal percentage. And it's a long enough trend that you start to think like, yes, there can be some regression there. They're probably not going to average allowing under 100 points a game at home this year, but it's also not a flash in the pan where they do it for a few games and then regress back to a higher number. It's a long enough trend that I think that there's a chance they continue, especially in a game like this that's probably slow against a Pelicans team that isn't very good away from home, that they're able to hold them down. The Pelicans have the 6th worst offensive rating in the league. They are 7-16 away from home against the spread this year. The Knicks are only 11-13 at home against the spread, so that's not phenomenal either. But the other thing I would say here on the over-under is away from home, the Pelicans are 9-14 to the over, so much higher percentage it goes under. And the Knicks are 10-14 at home to the over, so it goes under more for them as well. In terms of trends here, really bad against the spread trends for New Orleans. I just named a couple of those. Really good against the spread trends for the Knicks, actually. Pretty strong under trends for both teams. And then in this matchup specifically, the under is 13-6 in the last 19 in New York. That is a longer trend than I tend to like to look at matchup-wise because that goes back years and years. And the over is actually 4-0 in the last 4 between these two teams, which is kind of surprising. But that's a shorter trend that I actually pay a little bit more attention to. So when it comes down to this game, I do like the Knicks here. I think that they are able to win this game. Lining it for myself, I would put this at like a 3 or 4 point game. So I don't see a ton of value on the spread, but I do think that the Knicks win. And so I would consider them on the money line. I also would probably be more likely to just watch this game and see if I get a chance to get in at the Knicks on the money line or even getting a couple points live, depending on how the game progresses. And then in terms of the total, 209.5, obviously a low total, but I think there's a solid chance that the Knicks hold the Pelicans under 100 points again here today. So I think this is not a bad spot for the under or even potentially the Pelicans team total under, though obviously that's going to be very low, maybe 102.5 or something like that. But those are the things I see in this game, what I kind of like, at least some information that's hopefully helpful for you. Last game of the day, the Pacers at the Warriors. This is the Warriors minus 11.5, and the total is 217.5 now. Indiana is on a back-to-back. They just beat the Lakers last night, which lately beating the Lakers is not much of a feat. But Indiana's been actually really terrible for a while. They're 2-10 straight up in their last 12. So it is pretty fantastic for them to be able to get a win. They're 2-8 in their last 10 away from home. So it's not a regular thing for them to win a game. However, they are 5-2 on a back-to-back this year. And so this has definitely not been a bad spot for them. The most that they lost by in either of those two losses is they lost by 8 to Brooklyn, and we're getting an 11.5 spread here against a Golden State team that's basically had one good game in their last 8 or so and hasn't been able to score the ball hardly at all, except their one game against Chicago. So you can probably see which way I'm leaning just based on analysis, but I do think it is worth noting that Indiana is not bad on back-to-backs. They have a positive against the spread record, and they haven't gotten blown out in any of those games so far this year. Obviously, Golden State always has the possibility of blowing someone out. On the Golden State side, they just really still can't score. They had 102 points against Detroit last game. I mean, Detroit is not a good defense. So, yes, they won and covered the spread. They played good defense at home, but they scored 102 points. I would say that's pretty atrocious. They've been under 105 out of their last 8. I mean, it was even before Draymond left, but now with Draymond out, they just can't find it in terms of scoring. Draymond's been out for 5 games now, and so I went and that's a big enough sample that I wanted to look at kind of how they've performed with him out. And since he's been out, they've gone back and forth in terms of scoring 108, then 99, 138, then 99. Then they went to 102. So just the other side of 100. That's not a big jump. But it kind of makes me wonder, are we going to drop back down a little bit here or at least not bounce up really high? No way to know for sure. But Golden State hasn't scored the ball well with Draymond out. On the other side, in terms of what they're giving up, overall giving up more, 116, 118, then they drop down to 96, 119, then 86. And they have been a better defensive team at home this year, but we've talked before about how important Draymond is on offense and defense. And so I don't necessarily count on the Warriors to be able to hold any team under 100 points on a consistent basis. Now, they did it to Detroit and they covered the spread, and that's great. And Indiana is not a great offensive team by any means. I'm not saying that. But just this pattern that they've been going along here, I wouldn't be shocked to see Indiana be able to score some. I did look at some other specific stats. So like assists, for example, they had 39 in that game against Chicago where they went crazy, scored all that stuff. But 20, 20, and 25, their other games, Indiana only allows 22. Indiana's not a team that gives up a ton of assists. In terms of steals, they've had 12, 6, 12, 9, 8. So in a couple of their better games, they had 12, but then 6, 9, and 8. Indiana only gives up 7.73 steals a game. So it's on that lower end, like that 6 or 8, which are both games where they only scored 99 and 102 points. So that looks good for Indiana. The field goal percentage for Golden State, as you might expect, super high in that game against Chicago, but 41, 39, 34.7, 42.7, all pretty atrocious in those other 4 games. Indiana allows 46.2% away, so a little bit higher than where Golden State's been at, but not crazy high. And then 3-point percentage, again, very high in that game against Chicago, 45.2, but other than that, 33.3, 31, 33.3, 36.1. Indiana gives up 36.2 away from home on the season. So again, not incredibly high. So there's always the chance that Golden State gets hot. They have Steph and Klay, 2 of the best 3-point shooters in the league, if not of all time, plus some other people who are able to hit outside shots. So there's always the chance that they can get it working and just run away with a game. But what I'm telling you is that the numbers, especially here recently without Draymond, don't support that. And we have a longer trend now of Golden State not being able to score. I don't know how long until they turn that around. Trends in this game, there's bad against the spread trends for Golden State, some under trends for both teams, and then matchup specific, there's not really anything between these two teams against the spread, but the under is 4-1 in the last 5 between these two teams. So this is such a tough game to line for me because looking just at the numbers and analysis, looking at Indiana coming off a back-to-back and how they've performed there, I actually lined this as somewhere near a pick'em, maybe Golden State -3-ish, something like that. However, this feels like such a high volatility spot because Golden State can always run away offensively, and Indiana is not a good team. And they just come out and lay some absolute eggs at times. And so while based on the numbers, this would look like a spot to hammer Indiana to me at -11.5. And I am considering taking them there. I haven't made a bet on it yet. I do think that's really wide, especially with how Golden State has been scoring. And at the same time, like, can I really trust Indiana enough ever to put my money on them? The other thing I would consider here is the under. Because Golden State hasn't been scoring, they just had that one game against the Bulls. Even if they win this game, cover the spread, it could be similar to the Detroit game where it ends up being like 102 to 90. And in that case, we're well under. So I am considering the under on this game as well. All right, that's the breakdown today. Just 3 games. I will be back hopefully for one more tomorrow, and then I go in for surgery. So we'll see how long until we get another NBA breakdown. But appreciate you guys tuning in. Hopefully this was helpful. Have a great day, and I will see you on Twitter.